Hey, welcome to the Cam and Otis Show. Today, fellow veteran and entrepreneur Travis Arnold is joining us. Travis of Caisson Shaving, and we're going to find out a little bit more about what that means and why that is here in just a bit. Travis, thanks for being on the show today.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, right off the bat, I'm in that. Why shaving? I mean, in the Army, every morning I had to get up, do PT and shave. Actually, for the longest time before I became Special Forces, it was shave, then do PT. But I finally graduated to PT, then shave. I'm just curious, shaving products, man, what's going on? Tell me.
Yeah, so two-sided approach to it. I got out of the military, and I think I did just like every other veteran, and I grew out the fantastic beard. And I'm fortunate that I can grow out a beauteous a beard, but the wife doesn't agree with it. She much prefers the clean shaven look with it. So there's always that back and forth fight with it. So if I can stay clean shaven, I have a happy wife, and as you guys know, happy wife is a happy life. So that's one part of it, and the other part of it is if I was going to get start my venture into entrepreneurship, I wanted to be able to solve a problem. And what you talked about was exactly kind of the problem that I wanted to solve, was shaving in the military. When you're, especially when you're out in the field, you don't necessarily have access to your typical gamut of shaving supplies. You're not going to typically have any creams or gels, or definitely not aerosols, because they're going to either leak or possibly explode in your rucksack.
Don't forget nice warm water to put on your face. So
exactly. You typically will just take your cartridge razor or maybe an electric razor and hope that you have enough charge in it to last your FTX. But you'll dry shave, and for about half of our guys, it's miserable, but their faces can hold up with it. There's also a big section of our soldiers that when they do dry shave, it causes serious conditions to them. The razor bumps, burns, and it'll progress to points where they end up having to go in and try to get shaving profiles. So this has existed, and this has been the norm. Probably well before you enlisted, Otis, definitely well before I enlisted. And it will continue to be a problem until either soldiers are allowed to just be fully bearded, which I don't see happen, or somebody solves the problem. So that's where I kind of stepped up.
Well, we've all seen the pictures of the guys with the steel pot, and the shaving out of the steel pot. Done that, canteen cup too. So yeah.
Yeah, with these new combat helmets that they have coming out with those nice gel inserts in there, I don't think you're going to want to be shaving out of those anymore.
No.
Well, Travis, you identified the problem there. That's the first step in the entrepreneurship, right? So then how did you go about solving that problem? What and the product development along the way to get out there and really help folks?
Sure. And part of it was looking back. I had had some serious issues with the razor bumps and burns on my neck, and I had a doc recommend that I should change to an all natural product. Stop using something with all of these different chemicals, to see maybe if that would be one of the reasons with all of the irritations. And sure enough, that ended up clearing things up for me. It was just getting away from some of these harmful chemicals and detergents, and especially titanium dioxide, which is in a lot of shaving products. Titanium dioxide, all it is there to do is make the product look white, make it look that creamy appearance, because typically soap is not the most appealing thing to look at. So they just use it as a colorant, and unfortunately it is a known skin irritant, and there's even debate if it's considered a carcinogen. California considers everything a carcinogen, but it is one of the Prop 65 items. So that was one side, was looking at what the product market was. Well, if you go back just a couple of decades, these shaving creams and foams didn't exist. These
Mhm.
aerosol cans where you just, push a button and here comes out the shaving product. That's not how it was done. This was all done out of convenience. It's kind of like the McDonald's effect. And so, people want things quicker, easier, and, they're willing to sacrifice on quality. Well, you go back those couple of decades, and when you needed a shave, you would use a shaving soap, a puck style shaving soap, and you would take a shaving brush, work up a lather, and apply that lather to your face. And it's a twofold process. And not only are you getting a richer, uh, you know, better product to put on your face, but then also with the badger brush, you're exfoliating and you're working up those whiskers and you're getting them prepared to be shaved. So the shaving soap was kind of what was dialed into of being the best way of doing this. It's a hard puck style, so I'm not worried about it leaking or melting or anything like that. Plus, it's going to be something that you can create with all natural ingredients, and should be better on the skin.
So when you formulated it, were you in the kitchen? I mean, you and your wife had the pots and pans and going to the grocery store or the natural food or out in the backyard even and picking stuff. Well, how'd y'all do that?
A lot less Walter White than you would imagine, but there was a lot of Google research building up into it. Half of it was the formulation with it, and then also what the competitive analysis and my market research was with it. Shaving soap hadn't disappeared. I'm not the first to market right now with shaving soap, and out of the artisanal shaving soaps, there's a huge market out there. There are a ton of either artisanal or even some big name companies that are making shaving soaps. And so it was kind of researching, well, what are they doing? Well, on the at-home side of things, there's definitely a huge interest in tallow-based fat soaps.
Tallow, and that's a byproduct of meat, right? That's
yeah,
like
fat.
Fat.
It's rendered fat.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's kind of what the in flavor right now for these artisanal things are. Well, unfortunately, with the tallow-based products or even some of the oil-based products, when they melt and if they resettle, the soap is typically ruined.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I settled on a glycerin-based soap. And this can melt and resettle and melt and resettle, and kind of what you would expect if it's sitting in the back of a rucksack of a soldier is it's going to go through extreme temperature changes. And so that was it. There are a lot of really good bases out there already for some of these glycerin based soaps. So it was finding the right base. And then I started working on my tweaks to it. Good shaving soap, I think, will have a nice content of bentonite clay. It's a very fine clay, almost powder, mixed in with it, and that's what will create a real good slick effect. So as you're pulling that blade across your skin, it's going to just glide right across. And then finally, it was just working on the scents and the packaging and finally wrapping it up.
So is that where the real differentiator comes from? Is the combination of the glycerin with other aspects that are helpful still, but kind of still going back to that old school, but using a little bit of the stuff from nowadays that can be useful and isn't as harmful?
No, precisely. Yeah, it's if you were to take a side-by-side comparison, with my product with the tallow-based product, you're going to have equally good shaves. I think people will kind of lean towards the tallow-based for when you're at home, but that's fine. My product's not meant for that. I'm recognizing what my niche is and where I can fill that hole in a very niche market. The good thing is my niche market is still huge. So, yeah, I mean the differentiation is it's taking and further refining a base product by way of additions to it and packaging and material, and then even the value added from the brand and who I am. So
I think that's a really nice thing, because as we look at and talk with other entrepreneurs on the show, and other people that I meet and other stories you read about, that's one of the big things that's coming around. I feel like in entrepreneurship is really that marriage of the old and the new. A lot of people want to pick one or the other, where it's this rejection of everything old. Oh, it has to be new and shiny, or oh my gosh, you're using chemicals. How dare you? It has to be old and organic and all this kind of stuff. But in reality, there's this happy medium there that a lot of people want to gloss over. And I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs like yourself are really finding that foothold, is halfway between the old and the new and taking the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and you've seen it with kind of the revitalization of some of these. I hate to call them antiques because they're really not that old, but I mean that maybe antiquated ways of doing things.
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing vinyl records, coming back in huge surges, and people are, saying that that's the best way to listen to music.
He's laughing now because he got rid of his collection, and then about 4 years ago, I got all into my vinyl.
Oh no, I got them right down here on the shelf. I just didn't have that big a collection because I couldn't afford them. But I'm laughing because my daughter is all into this mid-century stuff. And I'm like, mid-century? You mean like 1850s? She said, no, Dad, 1950.
Ooh.
Like,
are the 1950s in right now? Is that what Sierra is saying?
Yes, yeah, that the 1950s are in. So, Travis, it sounds like you're hitting that right market, man. With throwback to the 50s, because that's about when like the Barbasol and all the aerosols started, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. That was kind of that turning point with it. And you can kind of see it, I mean, with trends and fashions and everything. I'm not a trendsetter by any means. I'm not a fashionable person. I mean,
come on, man. Come on, you can admit it.
I got by on wearing the same, uniform every single day for pretty much my entire adult life. So, but you do see these cycles and patterns, and is timing right when you're bringing something to market? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just 5 years ago, it would have probably been a really bad time to come to market, because that's, I think, when you started seeing this huge beard movement start to grow. Well, I mean, I do see it kind of being a fad, and maybe I will be trendsetter of bringing the clean shaven faces back.
How much, as you were going through your research of the different shaving soaps, that was the term, right? Shave soaps?
Yeah.
Okay. And different things. And as the transition went, how much of that became a history lesson of going back? Because you got to think about it. It's one of those things that we've obviously been doing for a very, very long time. Having certain types of beards has always been a fashionable thing, whether it's having the full beard, the mustache, the mud and chops, whatever it is, there's always been something going with that. So how much of it was going back to the old ways of doing things and then kind of reinvigorating it for, 2020?
I mean, there's a lot of layers to how things are done with it, from the different types of brushes and how that's progressed, and you'd have badger or boar hair brushes, and now it's gone, and a lot are synthetic based brushes. You've got the different ways of prepping, and your double edge or your straight razors, and how those have progressed and advanced with the technology with it, and some other quirky things too, like scuttles, where these like little teapot looking things where you would put boiling water underneath of it to kind of warm up the soap, and you put your brush and your razor in to prepare it. I mean, you go to an antique store and you'll probably see these things sitting around, and you look at them not knowing what they are, but you've got a lot of old school ways of how things were done, and now they're being revitalized through modern technology. So now your new double-edged razors, they're being created with extreme precision because of our CAD capabilities and our advanced manufacturing technologies now. So yeah, things are, I mean, creating them bigger, and not necessarily bigger, but creating them better than how they were in the past. So yeah, it's taking that old tech and just refining it with our modern capabilities.
I was gonna before I let you go, Dad. I was gonna jump in because I just it keeps going me back to agriculture and all my conversations with Dr. Quello. Of when you think about what's really the future of agriculture right now is everyone thinks like the factory farming, the LED lights, and all that kind of stuff. And that's a big piece of it. But another piece of it is going back and understanding how we were able to do this. We talk about sustainable agriculture. We were doing sustainable agriculture for a long time, and we were damn good at it. And we just moved away from it because we were pushing towards that efficiency. But what the modern look at agriculture now is that you got to go back, you got to look at those things that we were doing well, like some simple stuff like crop rotation. So simple, but we've moved away from that. And it's this conscious effort of going back, looking for those things that work well, and then combining it of, hey, we're going to rotate crops, and also I'm going to use AI to tell me how to rotate them the best, and I'm going to use drones to tell me when to water, and all this kind of stuff. You can combine all the different technology, and that's really where I think the best source of innovation is for right now. Because I think we're, and the reason I'm kind of hounding on this is because not only is it how you went about the problem solving, but I think we've seen it with a lot of other entrepreneurs to where we're really at this point where everyone wants to focus on technology. And I think we're almost a little burnt out on it to where we're trying to step back a little bit. And you have a lot of people who are saying, go back all the way to the roots. But I think the smart path forward is to kind of have that happy medium of, hey, do we need to get back to straight razor shaving? Probably not. We're pretty damn good at building razors, but getting back to the shave soap, that's something that we could be doing, and kind of finding that happy medium and marrying the old and the new. I'm just in love with that. That's becoming my theme for today.
Yeah, finding maybe where in the technological progression or scale where things had kind of peaked, where things were damn good, and really, I mean, you look at the 50s would kind of be the definition of it. We're coming out of post-war innovation era, and that's when some of our our best cars, our best music, our best everything were created. And then with maybe it is a generational thing. The baby boomer boom came around, and now you've got a huge explosion in population. And in order to accommodate that explosion in population, you've got to find different ways of doing things. Our speed of life and progression has picked up so much that people want that ease and convenience, but they're forgetting that just maybe a few years ago there were much better ways of doing things. Well, now so much time has passed between that we've forgotten those better ways of doing things, but we're still not too far removed from it. And I would even challenge you, when you're talking about straight razors, you'd be surprised at how these straight razors and these double-edged safety razors are coming back huge, and will be looked at as the superior way of doing it, of shaving, is because now you've got a single blade, extremely sharp, making a single pass on your skin. Whereas you take a Mach 5 or Mach 20 or whatever they've got now, you're taking blades that aren't nearly as sharp. They're much thicker because they want those blades to last longer, and 5 of them are scraping your skin every pass that you're going by, so it's creating more irritation. So I would even challenge that the razor side is in the same boat.
Love it. Well, I'm not the one to be speaking on the beards anyway. This is my 2-week playoff beard right now. You can't even freaking see it.
He did not get the beard gene. No. Everybody in our family can grow a beard, multiple generations. So that's that gene fell out of the pool for him.
Yes, sir.
Which I'm sorry, Travis, he will not likely be a user of Caisson because of that.
I can use it. I just probably won't be buying near as much as you.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's another thing to think about too, is we got into this culture of quicker and faster and also cheaper. And I'll be the first to admit, I mean, a can of shaving soap is more expensive on the initial purchase cost than shaving cream. You can get a shaving cream off the shelf of Walmart for $3-4, but how long does it last you? A couple of weeks at most. Whereas a puck of this will last you months. I've had the very first original test puck that I made in April, and that's been used on a daily basis. And it's been used to the extreme where I just load up a brush and I cover my entire face, and I'll run around and I'll chase down my kids and I'll make them test on, I'll do human testing on my own kids.
That's why we had kids, is to do human testing on, right?
Exactly.
Whatever you did to me, Dad, messed it all up.
And that can is still kicking. Some of my first customers, they're like, I've been shaving every single day and I'm maybe down a quarter of the can. And so, you're gonna have, good 4, maybe up to 6 months of use off of this. So, you would have gone through, 4 or 5 cans of, an inferior shaving cream. And you could have just got that 1 can of shaving soap and probably save some money. And same thing with the double-edged razors is, how much does it cost to replace 1 cartridge? It's like $5-6 right now for one of those things. A double-edged blade, they're pennies.
That's an interesting thing I wanted to jump into, because and that's what I was thinking. You touched on it, is that kind of going back a little bit and slowing down. And I think that's an interesting kind of cultural aspect when you think about it, because everything else is lightning fast. If this call wasn't working right now, if we weren't, if we were having little glitches and things like that on the internet connection, we'd be like flipping out, man. Come on, I need my lightning speed internet connection and my lightning speed, movement and processing in my computer. But yet, when I go into the bathroom and I want to shave, I want to have an experience. Are you feeling, and I'm saying that because I believe it's a gut instinct. Are you feeling a little bit of a shift towards that sort of aspect of your clientele, that they want more of an experience than get it done?
For the wet shaving enthusiasts, absolutely. They already have very much this refined, dapper gentleman attitude with it. And so taking the time to, properly shave and pamper yourself a little bit is already kind of ingrained with them. You can tell that these are, they go to the extreme with how much they put into it. Well, it's self-care. Self-care is important, and whether it's on your body, your face, and your physical appearance, or if it's your mental health as well too. Self-care is important. So how you're wanting to take care of yourself, that's definitely up to you, but do it. But then on the simple side too is, we've talked about the gentleman experience with the shaving soap, but still on the soldier side with things too is, we dry shaved because we had to. But here now you can take just a couple more seconds. It's not even a long time to get a far superior end product with it. Your shave, yeah, you can get a baby butt smooth shave dry shaving, but how many pints of blood are you going to lose in the meantime? Now you just take a couple more seconds and do things right the first time. It's always going to be the best way of doing it.
That's one thing as I'm thinking about, because I feel like for a lot of men out there who definitely might not be buying into not necessarily a self-care part, but as much as the appearance things, I think it's kind of definitely going that way, especially my generation and whatnot. But I think that that's something where most men will align on, that is the shaving side of things. I take more care of my skin and stuff than I ever would have, 5-6 years ago. But the one thing that I would actually take care for was always shaving. It was always a nice slow wet shave before the date on Friday night. Like that was the one time a week where I was actually taking care of my skin, I would say. But so I think you really hit it on the head when you talk about kind of focusing on that. And I think the other side of it, which I wouldn't necessarily consider it a problem, but it's a huge benefit for your type of product, is when you're, for the soldiers out there in the field that are moving away from the dry shaving and they're able to get this nice shaving, it kind of helps to bring back a little bit more of the humanity, the civilization out there for them. And I feel like that can have a huge effect on your customers.
Yeah, you're the phrase is, you're in the shit. embrace the suck, bohica, things like that are a part of the military culture. Well,
I
if
hadn't
you
heard
get
that one. Was that Bohica?
bohica, you can
We're
ask
gonna
your
have to
dad
need a
later.
definition. Is that
Uh,
off there?
no, I think, well, we're not bound by any
Oh, we already said.
regulations here, so.
We always say, Travis. We already said damn and shit once, so it's already off. It's explicit.
Well, funny. Bohica blend. Bohica blend is actually one of the names of one of my soaps. Bohica means bend over. Here it comes again. So, if you're able to take, a part of embracing the suck and make it suck a little bit less, and that's why with the shaving soaps, these have some fragrance built into it. I don't go very strong with mine because you don't want to sound, you don't want to smell like a barracks bunny when you're out in the field, but you want at least enough to, it freshens the day. It's the same reason why you brush your teeth every single morning, is it starts you off at the right tempo of doing things, and maybe just freshening up your face a little bit, having a little bit of a clean scent, it will be enough to kind of motivate you to start the day off right.
No,
Yeah,
that's
I
such a
think
great little point of you're in the suck, but you can do this one little thing, and soldiers are so good at that, whatever that is. I flash back to Ranger School, and something as simple.
Please tell me you're going to talk about Ranger pudding.
Well, close. Ranger cookie is what I was thinking of.
There you
go. Which you can't do anymore because they changed the whole packaging. Sorry, today's Army. But just that little thing of taking the creamer, the coffee creamer, and putting sugar in that, and then mixing it up, and then lighting the package on fire and making a sugar cookie. I mean, that was like, oh man, this is so good. Hey, dude, you're gonna use your creamer, because the coffee was terrible. Nobody ever used the coffee, but man, that creamer and the sugar and the old MREs, old sea rats that had the paper over the foil, you could do just that. And it's always funny because soldiers will do those little things, not to get out of the suck. They'll sit there in the mud because that's what soldiers are supposed to do. You sit there in the mud, but having a nice, clean, smooth shave, that makes the mud. It's like, okay, it's just mud, right?
Yep.
I was going to say, it's been reminding me a lot of like when we had James on a few weeks ago talking about look good, feel good. And I think it's just with the shaving, it's more look good, feel good. But then what you're talking about there, Dad, I think that's more of a broad sense of it, where it's not necessarily look good as much as just doing something, creating that little bit of something positive so that you can carry yourself a little bit better. It's like your favorite thing, Dad. If you wake up in your morning, you're all sad and don't want to work, what do? You go work out, and then that helps get you going. Or hey, and then Travis, you go shave, and it helps you get you the rest of the way, and you get that energy up and going. So I think that's an interesting little positive psychological effect you're talking about there. It kind of takes that look good, feel good, and takes it to the next level of even just using something like a meal or a little treat or something like that to help, give yourself the carrot instead of the stick to push yourself forward throughout the day.
Yeah, a little bit of normalcy.
Yeah, exactly.
I won't quite say that my products are going to be as good as getting that package of jalapeno cheese, but it'll be a close second.
That was some good stuff right there, because it kind of covered up the weirdness of the cheese with the jalapeno flavor. But yeah, we won't go down there. Don't want to upset anybody's stomach while we're talking about that. Hey, I'm curious, Travis, and I always ask this of all of our entrepreneurs, especially in the startup time when they're like where you're at, is what came first? I want to be an entrepreneur, or hey, there's a problem to solve. Start solving that problem and then go, why not make it a business? How did what was your kind of path?
I'd always had, I think, an entrepreneurial spirit, even since I was a kid. I was 15, 16 years old. I had already hand-built my first computer at the time, and I was going through the neighborhood and stopping by. We had a photographer that was just around the corner from where I lived, and he had his own studio there. I'm like, hey, I could design the website for you. And so I was a teenager, and I started doing websites. When I was in the military, trying to find a hustle one way or the other. when I was in law enforcement, I was the guy that, I had my own t-shirt line at the time. And so I'd always had little side hustles, but they were never one of these, full-fledged businesses. I mean, that was just, some extra side cash. So that had always been there. So I've always had that spark. But absolutely, when it was finding what the problem was that I could fix, because that's where you bring value. People typically don't buy something or someone. They buy the value that it brings to them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in a product-based industry like I am, or if you're a service-based industry, they're not gonna buy your service because it's that service. It's because of the value that it brings to their lives. And the easiest way to build up value is to fix a pain point for them. So here, and mine is a literal pain point. Sometimes that pain point is figurative. But finding that the market value is I think probably the first thing that was really important to me is, where could I bring that value?
So I pain is inevitable. Suffering is a choice, right? And then,
yeah.
And also I got to throw out the other one that I always say is pain is relative, right? And everybody, what sucks, that dry shave. I may be like over there, that one group that you mentioned earlier on, that's like, no big deal. Then there's the other guy, my foxhole buddy, that is like its skin is just like in this huge heat rash looking thing, and it burns and it sucks, and he's going to the first sergeant and all those sort of things to try and do something about it. Those are the guys that, that pain is immense. So yeah, it's a great thing. And I also throw it at you, good on you to define it that way, because that is so true for business. Be thinking in that sort of business sense of what's your client's pain and what do you do to relieve that pain point. So great way of figuring out how to actually take something that you and your wife made in the kitchen and turn it into a business that will grow.
And I think it's important for young entrepreneurs just starting out. I'm fortunate because I have a bit of a sales background, so I already have the the acumen and the skills to just naturally roll over to this. But for your founders out there, you're a salesperson more than you are a CEO at the start of things. And you're selling yourself, or you're selling your products, and you've got to really get comfortable in the sales aspect with it. And not a lot of people like doing that, but it is absolutely required.
Yeah, I want to, since you brought up background, I wanted to call you out on that. So here you are, cannon cocker, cop, sales guy, now entrepreneur. I know you said you kept that little string of entrepreneur, kind of the under the table thing, but I just gotta ask you, man, were you searching for something, and bouncing around with all those different ventures?
There was really a natural ebb and flow with it. The Cannon Cocker went to me transferring down and was deployed to Arizona on the southwest border mission. And as I was wrapping up that mission, the sheriff's office was, they were smart, and they were trying to pick up as many of those transitioning soldiers as possible. So I said, yeah, absolutely. And so that was it. And then I transitioned to the Arizona National Guard and did the MP thing for a while. Did that for almost 10 years. Medically, and that was about the same time with the military as well. Got out, and my wife is originally from California, so it's like, all right, let's uproot everything in Arizona and let's move to this communist state and see how things work out. And so sure enough, we landed here. I got picked up with a law firm, but I was driving 55 miles on the 405 freeway every day. And while that might not translate anything to anybody outside of California, but 55 miles on the 405 means about 4.5 hour commute one way. So I had these insane commutes and I had to get out of it. And I ended up finding a job at a company called Mildef, and it probably saved my life, honestly. But I'm doing professional business development. I'm working with military rugged computers. So that, like I had mentioned, as I was a teenager, my interest in technology and computers was there. So that came full circle. The military side of things, that came full circle. The laptops that I'm working on are going to be going into the same type of counter battery radar systems that I worked on when I was in the military. So another full circle thing. But there was this kind of natural flow of things, but I was also not resistant to change either. Going from law enforcement to sales is actually a really easy transition.
Tell us more about that. That's an interesting one. I'd love to hear more about that.
Have you ever been pulled over?
Oh, well, no, not me. Never.
Did you get a ticket?
Yeah, of course I did.
Did you thank the officer for giving you the ticket?
No, I did tell him to be careful. I told him to be careful and be safe.
Camden thanked that officer for giving him a citation. That was my goal every single time that I gave the ticket, is I wanted them to say thank you. I wanted them to be appreciative for what service I provided to them, because as law enforcement, you are a public servant. So even though I was giving you potentially $1,000 worth of citations, I wanted that person to be appreciative of what I did for it. So that's naturally, you're a salesman, and there's kind of like that little inside thing where, if you can get somebody to thank you for giving them a ticket, you're probably not going to end up in court. So you do that since you didn't want people fighting these cases. And even though you got overtime for showing up in court, it still sucks to have to do that on your day off. So you learn how to word these things and how to address this. You go up there to that traffic stop and you were doing 75 miles an hour and the speed limit was 55 miles an hour. Here's your ticket, press hard, 5 copies. Well, no, you come back up and listen. I did notice your speed was above the posted speed limit. 2 days ago, I just took a fatal accident investigation on this street. Or, listen, you were speeding, but you were just a little bit over. I also noticed you don't have your seatbelt on. Seatbelts are extremely important for XYZ reason. Instead of me dinging you for the speeding citation, which is going to take points off your license and it's going to do this to your insurance, here's a $35 citation for the seatbelt. Don't do it again. And all of a sudden it's, thank you. So again, I think it's the pain point is really twisted in that situation because you're giving pain. But if you can give less pain than they anticipated, then maybe that was the value.
And I think there's an interesting phenomenon in that, which is the framing of it, where if you want to be successful and you want to really solve the problem better, solving the problem isn't getting them to pay the ticket necessarily as much as prevention in the longer run and, getting them to stop. And when you're going in and you're making that sale and you're going in and telling them of what happened the other day, because that's exactly what I was thinking of before you said the example, Travis, of if you were speeding, or I had a friend of mine who got a ticket once for merging onto a highway early. They crossed the double white line, and the guy comes over and he said something along the lines of, 80% of traffic accidents on the highway happen because someone does that. And it scared my buddy straight because he didn't want to do that anymore. And, he ended up saying thank you for it because it was that insightful knowledge and understand the situation better. That's actually going to have a lasting effect on that person, rather than, damn it, Travis gave me a ticket, now I gotta go pay this crap, and being pissed off about it, because then they're not going to change. They're never going to change if they're pissed off about it. You want to give them a little bit more, I would even say that's a little bit of a carrot to the situation. You're trying to move the pain point, remove the pain point from it, make it a little different to where it's like, look, you're getting this, but here's the framing, the point of reference of, we could have been scraping you off the asphalt. That's not what's happening. Aren't you glad?
It's an add-on sale.
Exactly.
There you go, man. I love that. Man, I never thought about it that way. It's an add-on sale. Yeah, man, that's great. I'm curious. you said you started off really young in the entrepreneur was, and maybe you said this and I just forgot it already, but did your parents, were they in business, or, how did that, what was the genesis of, I want to run a business. I want to solve problems on my own.
No, I unfortunately didn't have a father that could give me $1 million to start my real estate investment. My father is now a retired law enforcement officer, so it's probably one of the other reasons why I ended up in law enforcement as well. Was definitely the family tie. My mom, she's a nurse for an ophthalmologist, so no entrepreneurial background or family history with it. But then I think the creativity was always there. You know, I'll give my old man the credit. He definitely has some entrepreneurial spirit, and he's always coming over. Hey, I've got this idea. You should do this. Or you should do that. It's just like some of these are pretty damn good. So, maybe there was a little bit of a rub down with that.
That's good. Well, I mean, that environment to allow a little bit of creation, whether or not they were like some of our guests, our entrepreneurs have been on, grew up in that sort of family, but just the fact that your parents allowed you to play around and experiment, and because here's something I just thought of that I think is interesting also, though, that I find slightly counterintuitive, because in the military, you're driven towards risk aversion, and as a police officer, you're driven towards risk aversion. But yet, as an entrepreneur, you have to accept a lot of risk. And I'm wondering if you felt that, or were you that
Oh
kid,
no, that risk is right here, right now. It's very real, and it's what has caused me the most amount of stress to this point. And I can't emphasize that right now as much. I actually was just contacted yesterday by a team from Amazon, their military entrepreneur program. It's this launch pad, and they more or less said, you're next. We're gonna put you through the launch pad here. Are you ready to go? And it's just like, no, I'm not. I'm going to step up to the plate with it. I'm not going to miss out on this chance and this opportunity. But it was one of those things where, I mean, I've been bootstrapping my way, the last couple of months here. I took $1,000 out of savings to do my initial R&D and also make the first batch of shaving soaps with it. And I took the revenue from that and I reinvested that into a larger quantity and started adding this and that, and so I've just been building it up. So I mean, I don't have capital to start going into an Amazon fulfillment center. So yeah, there is a huge amount of risk, but you can do things really smart as well too. That bootstrapping, I don't want to go out and take a loan, and I probably will never go out and take a business loan. I haven't had to ask my parents for money. I've done this all off of a very little amount of savings, where I was willing to risk, $1,000 if it failed. So what? If I fail at this point, I have no debt. I don't owe anybody anything. And if nobody buys another can of my shaving soap at this point, well, I've got a lifetime supply of shaving soap, and I've got great Christmas presents for the next couple of years. So I'm really not out anything.
Love that silver lining there. So Travis, the last thing I wanted to ask was, so I think we've gotten a lot of really good entrepreneurial lessons from you as we've talked through your journey. So the last one I wanted to pull out of you was, so what was your actual decision point on moving forward with this? The quitting the day job type moment. How did that come about, and what did that decision look like for you?
I still haven't quit the day job, and I probably won't. I like. And I don't know if you guys have found this. I'm imagining being a former group guy. You've got a certain amount of love and passion for the things that you do. When you find a job where you wake up and you're like, it's time to go to work, that's something special. And so the good thing is, with MilDef and the relationship that I've got there, it's great. I like having my technology role. So what's going to end up happening for me is I'm going to have 2 full-time ventures going on with it. And I'm insane enough to be able to manage my time, but then I respect my time as well too. When it's time for family, it's time for family. I'm not sitting there watching 3 or 4 hours of Netflix. I'm running my second business instead. So the jumping off point really ended up being after a couple weeks of me trying the products and realizing that, look, my neck is good. Then sending it over to some of my redheaded Irish buddies, who I knew had some of these problems with it. I mean, these are some fair-skinned dudes, and I'm like, I need you to test this out because, you know, if anybody has any sensitivity to anything, it's going to be you. And they came back and they're like, this has been the greatest week of shaving of my life. I'm like, okay, cool. I might be onto something here. And then, you know, continuing out, and I mean, I had to send out quite a few sample cans. Went down to some local barbershops, and this is right during the coronavirus situation where business sucks for everybody, especially our barbershops and our hair salons. And I said, hey, I know that I'm coming to you at the worst possible time in history, and I'm going to try to sell you something, but listen to me. And they did, and they started using the products, and they came back and they're like, dude, it's great. Here's the contact information for our distributor. We're going to tell them that we want to run your line. And you know that it worked. So I think once you've confirmed market validity and you know that you've found your niche, that's the jumping off point.
And you know what I like about that, Travis, is because you're totally right. That's the best way to look at it. But then also, I would even say that, you know, as entrepreneur trying to take lessons out of it, that also shows that you don't necessarily have to jump in right away. This isn't okay, hey, I sold 10. Let's go. I'm quitting. I better make that, you know, couple $1,000s by the end of the month so I don't lose my house. But hey, I'm jumping right in. You don't have to do that necessarily. You can balance things. And I think that's also an important lesson.
It's great too to be able to look at some of the stories, and entrepreneurials are typically very alpha, extroverted type persons, and we have no problem talking and telling our stories and showing up in front of a camera. And a great example of this is Damon John, one of the Shark Tanks. And you hear his story on how he worked his way up, and he did work his way up from absolutely nothing into, you know, where he's doing well for himself. He was working at a Red Lobster simultaneously while starting FUBU. And he mentioned that extra $1,500 a month was huge in his ability to grow and scale. So if I could give any advice, if you already have a full-time job, and your full-time job allows you to have that side business and hustle, keep that full-time job as long as you can.
Well, I think what it also does is it puts a little bit of that, you're forced, just what you described, you know, how you're managing your time. It forces you a bit more to work on your business, put vice in it. Because when it's just, you know, you've got the startup idea, and even if you're bootstrapping, but much more if you're, you know, taking investors, you feel like you got to be dived into it. And I think you get caught down in the weeds in your business much more frequently, as opposed to really, you know, the only way to truly be successful with your business and grow your business is to work on your business and have that step up out of the weeds. You got to touch in there every so often, you know, dip your toe in the pond sort of thing. But you got to stay up above that riffraff. And what you're doing right now with the full-time job, with a job that sounds like you love, which is awesome. Congratulations for that. And a side gig, which you love. And then maybe you have a family that you love too. So that'd be three. That's pretty good, man. So congratulations.
I don't think you can ask for much more. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you know, I really appreciate your time, Travis. It's been a lot of fun, interesting. It makes me feel bad for not shaving this morning. I skipped, you know.
I was going to say, what's happening with the playoff beard, Dad? You don't want to win the cup this year?
Oh, okay. Calling me out on that now.
Oh, yeah. If I have to walk around looking like this, I think you can grow out an actual beard.
Okay. All right. Yeah. As long as the playoffs are going to go, I would have a real beard by the time hunting season comes around.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, awesome, Travis. So, man, I appreciate it. Camden, Travis, at the end of our show, we always go through what did we learn, and it's my turn. So, I learned quite a bit about the whole shaving thing, and I, I'm kind of surprised at what the brushes were made out of. That was the one that jumped out at me, believe it or not. I was thinking badger and boar's hair, and I'm like, I should have shot that badger a couple of years ago when I had that chance and I was out hunting, and I decided not to, because then I could have made a shaving brush. So yeah, that's actually what I learned. Camden, what'd you learn today?
Well, Dad, I was going to say, what does a badger say?
Badger, badger, badger.
All right, sorry, I had to get that in there. That's an old inside joke from hunting about 6, 7, 8 years ago, somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah, at least.
Oh yeah. So I loved what you said, Travis, about law enforcement and transitioning to sales. I thought that was a really interesting way of looking at it, especially with everything going on right now. A lot of people have lots of different questions about the way that policing goes and the way people enforce laws in different areas. And I think it's one of those, listening to you talk like that, I think if more people had that perception of the way they were doing their job, and frankly, I don't know how many other people have looked at it that way, because you're the only person I heard say that. But I think that's just such a good way of looking at doing that job, and you're going to get so much better results when we talk about really solving the problem instead of just punishing for it. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks,
Travis.
guys.
What'd you learn?
I learned that 40 ounces of coffee is still not enough. No, it was good. It's I think these opportunities for me, when I was a cop, I was never a public speaker. I was not the person that wanted to stand up in front and do things. I ended up signing up to become the DARE officer, to specifically address and deal with that. And now, I can at least go out and I'm a pretty damn good public speaker. Going on and doing these podcasts or these webcasts, this is a very purpose thing. The business isn't so much about it and advertising the business, but this is how our society is going to be for quite some time. Becoming comfortable in being able to do webcasts and go live and converse over a computer screen is important. So being able to have these types of communication is great. And then just the further networking with it too. If you're not networking in business, you're not in business. Mm-hmm. So just being able to meet new connections and share your experiences and figure out how you can and grow with each other is great and important. So thank you guys for letting me make that connection here.
So where do we find Caisson shaving at? Where can we buy it and all those sort of things?
For right now, to buy it, head over to the website caisson-shaving.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Very soon, I will be on Amazon. Give me a couple weeks for that. And then hopefully for our military personnel, I'm working through contracts and negotiations with the Marine Corps Exchange and Army and Air Force Exchange Services. So hopefully you'll see the shaving soaps and the PXs here within the next couple months.
Oh, that's awesome. That'd be a great win for you, and I think you'd do great with the names of your product. That maintaining that tie back to the veteran tribe and the veteran community with the names. So thanks again, man. It's been a lot of fun having you and talking to you and learning more about how to shave a little bit nicer. So that's great. Hey, Camden, run us out, please.
All right. Thank y'all again for listening to today's show. Special thanks to Travis Arnold for joining us today, and our sponsors, MASH, Military and Athletic Strength Hemp Oil, and Verbi Virtual Events. You can check out recent episodes of The Cam and Otis Show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, and check out a full archive at thecamandotusshow.buzzsprout.com. Cam and Otis Show is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks again, and we'll see y'all next week.